Hello Nidorinas and Nidorinos, I'm KingNido, and today it is the Pastoria Hydros going up against the Petalburg Razors. And for the Hydros, they have been near perfect this season, only having just dropped their first game, but they are yet to drop a series. And the Petalburg Razors, who have a fantastic record against the Hydros, are looking to stop them in their tracks, whereas the Hydros, they are looking to respond and show how they do handle a defeat. But with all that said, let us know in the comments below who you think's going to win this matchup. Will it be the water decks? Will it be the colorless decks? Let's go!
3, 2, 1, go!
And starting off this contest for the Pastoria Hydros, it is their Lake of Rage deck, moving their Monotype into the active spot. It is the Feebas on the bench. It is the Milk Tank from the Moo Moo Ranch deck of the Petalburg Razors going into their active spot with their Bouffalant on the bench. We can see that they've already got that Whitney in hand as well, plus that Giant Cape and Professor's Research. For the Hydros, they've just pulled their own Professor's Research. They've also got the Memory Light, the Traveling Merchant, and the Lyra, as they do pull the Gyarados and the Milotic. That Milotic who does evolve from the Feebas, and Monotype can generate an energy for the Feebas with that Splashy Toss move, as it doesn't require any energy, and already Feebas receiving its first energy. Milotic does require 2, as the potion is pulled for the Razors. They are going to play their own Professor's Research, getting the additional 2 cards. They get the Bouffalant, but they also get the Pokemon Communication. So if they're not happy with that Bouffalant, they can actually send it back into the deck with the Pokemon Communication, getting a different Pokemon card out in return. But instead, they're just going for the Rolling Frenzy, and we have seen this take off before. It gets that additional 30 power every consecutive turn. This does stack as the Suicune is pulled for the Hydros, who need to cut off this Rolling Frenzy as quickly as possible. This can get to maximum damage that no Pokemon can outlast a hit from it, so they need to cut it off. But that Whitney is a key asset for the Racers. It is going to be the Traveling Merchant played for the Hydros. They do get that inflatable boat from their top 4 cards here, and they are going to play that Milotic here. They can go with the Healing Ripples, but there's only been that 10 damage onto the Monotype. Regardless, I'm sure they still want it at full strength. Unfortunately for them as well, Monotype does have a 0 retreat cost, so they can move the Milotic into the active spot. This Aqua Edge does do 60 damage. Miltank having 110 max HP, being brought down to 50. It does come over to the Razors. They do pull their Rocky Helmet. They've already got the Giant Cape as well, but they're going to play that Whitney, who will restore the 60 health for the Miltank. And this Rolling Frenzy, having been used once, is now capable of 40 damage. As we said, it gets that additional 30 power every time it is used consecutively. It is the Kangaskhan being pulled after that Pokemon Communication is played, sending the Bouffalant back into the deck of the Razors here. And they are going to also add the Giant Cape onto the Miltank. This will take it out of a 2-strike discard range from the Milotic here, boosting Miltank's maximum HP up to 130. Bouffalant does get its first of 3 required energy, and the Rolling Frenzy continues, now doing 40 damage to the Milotic. On the next time, it will be capable of doing 70 damage. That Gyarados has been pulled for the Hydros with that Wild Swing. We've seen what that is capable of as well. But it is the first energy for the Suicune, and that Aqua Edge continuing from the Milotic, 60 damage back onto the Miltank, bringing it down to 70 health. The Razors, they do re-pull the Bouffalant already. But with that Bouffalant that is on the bench, it gets its second of 3 required energy. This Rolling Frenzy, as we said, up to 70 damage now, and it is going to take Milotic down to only 10 health remaining. This is just getting more powerful with every passing turn. The Hydros need to get Miltank off the board. They have just pulled their second Milotic. Suicune getting its second energy here, and Miltank is actually in discard range of the Suicune, but they are 1 energy short of being able to connect. So they have to go with the Aqua Edge here from Milotic, bringing Miltank down to only 10 health remaining. And it is back over at the Razors. They pull their Stantler, who does have those enhanced horns. When it does have a Pokemon tool attached, it does an additional 50 damage, only doing 20 base damage. It does receive its first of 2 required energy. And the Razors thinking about how they want to approach this. Neither side has taken a point so far in Game 1. And we have seen what this Rolling Frenzy is capable of, and it is going to hit that 100 mark to wipe Milotic clean off the board. The Razors taking the first battle point here in game 1. Now, it is the first of 3 battle points across all 3 games, and each game that is played in this series is worth 2 victory points that count towards our leaderboard, but all those battle points and every ounce of damage done count as well. The Fisher has been pulled for the Hydro. Suicune is in the active spot, and they are going with that Cure Stream to finally wipe Miltank off the board and cut off this rolling frenzy that was building momentum. And both sides now having taken their first point, as the Hydros were able to drag out that Miltank for as long as possible, only losing 1 Pokemon in that play. That is Stantler in the active spot. They did just pull their second Stantler, and the active Stantler gets that Rocky Helmet Pokemon tool, the Enhanced Horns, 70 damage on to the Suicune as it comes back over to the Hydros. They pull their second Feebas, and they are going on to the bench, already having that second Milotic in hand. And they do attach a first energy here to Feebas as well. The inflatable boat, that Pokemon tool being attached to the Suicune. Now they cannot take Stantler off the board, and they are in discard range. They're going to retreat the Suicune thanks to that inflatable boat. They're willing to move the Mantyke into the active spot, and with that splashy toss they can generate energy for the Feebas or the Suicune, and they are going with it on the Feebas, so they don't want to drop the Suicune. Clearly they're willing to lose the Mantyke as the Igglybuff is pulled for the Petalburg Razors, their own baby Pokemon inside this deck. And Bowfluent does receive its third energy as that Enhanced Horns, it is going to wipe Mantyke off the table, not the Miltank. We saw that earlier on. The Mantyke has been taken off the board, and the Razors are 1 point away from taking game 1 over the Hydros. The Magikarp has been pulled, Suicune is in the active spot, and this would only be the second time that we've seen the Hydros drop a game. Again, they have not dropped a series. It was only the 3rd game in their previous series that they lost. But it is that Milotic coming online, able to restore that 60 health for the Suicune. They go with the Cure Stream, 70 damage onto the Stantler here. There will be that 20 recoil damage due to the Rocky Helmet, but now Stantler, they are going to only capable of doing 50 damage in the next turn due to that Cure Stream. The Rescue Scarf has been pulled for the Petalburg Razors. They move their second Stantler onto the final bench slot, and it has that Pokemon tool attached to it now. So now it too is capable of 70 damage output. Does receive its first energy as the Enhanced Horns, 50 damage onto the Suicune, putting it into discard range of the Stantler here. The Rescue Scarf being pulled for the Hydros, and there it is, the Gyarados, that Wild Swing coming online. It receives its second required energy. This Wild Swing does do 20 damage. It does an additional 40 though for every Pokemon on their own bench that they choose to discard. Now they don't have to discard any to wipe this Stantler off the board, but they're going to go with both of them here. So in that play, they are going to lose both Suicune and Milotic into their discard pile. They're maximizing their damage here. They are feeling confident. They've got that Fisher in hand, and with the Fisher they get to flip 3 coins, and for every heads they do get a Pokemon, a water type Pokemon out of their discard pile here, but they need them to be basic Pokemon, as it is that second Stantler moved into the active spot, the Whitney being pulled for the Petalburg Razors. And that second energy here going onto the active Stantler that can get off 70 damage with these Enhanced Horns, bringing Gyarados down to only 40 health remaining. And the Hydros, this is a 1 point game 1. They have pulled their silver, that supporter card. Now they can only play 1 supporter card per turn, so they are going with the Fisher. As we said, 3 coin flips. They get the first one. They get the second one. They miss out on... Sorry, I said they get the second one. They miss out on the second one. They get the third one, but they get a Milotic. It is the Suicune that is pulled. They cannot get the Stantler off the board. They are only capable of 60 damage. They have played too confidently here with the Gyarados. They got rid of the Milotic and the Suicune on the previous turn. Their own actions have just cost them the first game, because Gyarados is in discard range of this Stantler. They pulled the Kangaskhan, but they're going for the win. This Moo Moo Ranch deck is going to hold on and take down the Lake of Rage deck from the Hydros. The Hydros made a critical error, and that has cost them here, and the Razors have capitalized in game 1. But as we have our first table reset, if you're enjoying what you're seeing, please leave a like and subscribe so don't miss out on any of the action in the PokeType League TCG. But for the first time this season, the Hydros have dropped game 1, and the Razors want to capitalize here with their Undaunted Daybreak deck, moving their Centrets onto the table. The Hydros, they're playing with their Tojo Falls deck. We can see the 2 Poliwags that they've got in hand. They've already got the Politoed. There is the Furret already in hand for the Razors as well, but the Hydros, for the first time this season, they're on the back foot. Is their only costly error here, but it is the Zangoose being pulled for the Razors. They've got that Pokemon Communication in hand. They've got the Ursaring as well. They think of moving the Zangoose onto the bench, but decide against it. It comes over to the Hydros, and they get the Poliwhirl already. So they've already got the full Politoed line. Poliwag getting its first energy, so I can go for this Water Gun, getting 20 damage onto the Sentret as it comes over to the Razors, and they are going to get their Teddiursa. As we said, they've already got the Ursaring in hand as well. They can get the Furret online, and if they go for this Tail Smash, it is a coin flip, but if they flip the heads, it will do 80 damage and wipe this Poliwag off the table. If they get the tails, it will do nothing. And that is exactly what happens. They do get the tails. That is fortunate for the Hydros. This can allow them to continue setting up for the Politoed, as it is the Poliwhirl coming online, and it does have 90 health, so it is out of discard range from the Furret. The Quillfish has been pulled, and it's now online as well, as the second Poliwag gets its first energy. And there is the Wave Splash, 30 damage onto the Furret. The Razors, they critically needed that head flip, as they do pull the potion. They get a first energy onto the Teddiursa, and they're already getting the Ursaring online. This is their swing around Ursaring that does 60 damage, does an additional 20 for 2 coin flips as well. There are 2 coin flips for every heads. They get that additional 20, but there it is, the 80 damage onto the Poliwhirl from the Furret. As it comes back over to the Hydros, they pull their Fisher from this deck. And it is the Politoed coming online. It only has 60 health, however, so we know it can't outlast a hit from the Ursaring, but it can take out this Furret with the Hyper Voice, and the Hydros will take the first battle point here in game 2. They want to redeem game 1. They do not want to drop a series. They have gone 4-0 so far in series so far this season. The Zangoose now in the active spot. Is the Rocky Helmet being attached. So with that counter attack, it does do 20 damage to the opposing Pokemon when they take damage, but with the counter attack, with the Rocky Helmet, it also will do an additional 20 on top of that, so they can do 40 damage without doing anything. The Octillery being pulled for the Hydros, and Quillfish looking to receive its first energy here. That is exactly what happens, as it is another Hyper Voice coming from the Politoed, 60 damage onto the Zangoose, bringing it down to only 20 health, but there will be that 40 damage thanks to the counter attack Rocky Helmet combination onto Politoed, putting Politoed with only 20 health remaining. The Razors, they are going to pull their Silver. And with the Silver, this allows them to look at the hand of the Hydros, so they will know all the cards that are there, but they also get to put that supporter card back into the deck of the Hydros, who have to reshuffle the Fisher. And there's the potion onto the Zangoose as well. They're trying to ensure that the Quillfish, you have to imagine, cannot take out the Zangoose. They want that Politoed to make that critical choice of taking out the Zangoose here. It is the Lyra, however, that has been pulled for the Hydros. This can allow them to retreat the Politoed for 0 retreat cost if they so choose, as it has taken damage, and that's exactly what they do. They move the Quillfish into the active spot. Is the Poison Sting. It will do that 20 damage to the Zangoose. There'll be the 40 damage back onto the Quillfish, but Zangoose also has to contend with the poisoning that is in play. And thanks to the poisoning, Zangoose is left with only 10 health remaining. Quillfish lost half its health doing that damage to Zangoose. Ursaring getting its 3rd required energy, and they can retreat the Zangoose here. This will cure it of that poisoning with only 10 health remaining, avoiding dropping another point, and they are going for the swing around. They don't need to flip any heads here, but they still get one for that additional damage, and every ounce of damage counts towards the leaderboard, so I'm sure they're happy with that, as they do wipe the Quillfish off the board. But Ursaring is set up and ready to go. The Hydros, they move the Politoed back into the active spot. That Hyper Voice capable of 60 damage. They can halve the health of the Ursaring. The second Poliwhirl has been pulled for the Hydros as well. They are going to want that second Politoed. They get a third energy onto the Poliwhirl, the Hyper Voice, 60 damage, halving the health of Ursaring here. Now Ursaring absolutely can take out the Politoed with the swing around. It's just how much damage will they do. If they get those 2 heads, it gets 100 damage. They pull the Smeargle, they play the Pokemon Communication, and then they're sending the Igglybuff back into their deck, and in return they get the second Teddiursa. They are starting to, they think of getting the energy onto the Zangoose. Now Sentret only requires a single energy. They're also having a look at the Smeargle. Smeargle can cause the energy of the opposing Pokemon to be changed, but they are going in the end with the energy onto the Zangoose and another swing around, another coin flip. They get a Tails and they get a second Tails, so it's only 60 damage onto the Politoed, but regardless it is discarded from the table. And the Razors, they are 1 point away from handing the Hydros their first series defeat of the season. Again, that wild swing from the Gyarados in game 1, but it is the Politoed that is pulled for the Hydros. They do get a full health Politoed into the active spot. They get a 4th energy onto it as well, and they go for the Hyper Voice. They will take Ursaring off the table. It is again a 1 point game between the Hydros and the Razors. And the Razors, they move the Sentret into the active spot. They're clearly hoping that they pulled the Furret, but instead they do pull the Smeargle. And they are limited on options here. This is exactly what the Hydros needed. They pulled that Politoed at the exact right time. They're going to retreat the Sentret. They move the Zangoose into the active spot, knowing that that recoil damage can do more than Sentret could have to Zangoose. And this frees up the Hydros to go for another Hyper Voice, and they will take game 2 as they look to hold on to their perfect series record this season, as we go to a game 3 decider following the Tojo Falls deck taking the win over the Undaunted Daybreak deck, and we will be having our final table reset. And with our game 3 decider here, it is the Petalburg Razors going first using their Unleashed Nightfall deck. We can already see the 2 Farfetch'd in hand, plus the Hoothoot, the Spearow, and the Igglybuff. Basic Pokemon galore. The Hydros playing their Cold Fusion deck. It is the Igglybuff with that Sleepy Lullaby in the active spot, Hoothoot onto the bench. The Hydros, and Spearow as well, sorry, but the Hydros, they are going with the Ducklet from their Cold Fusion deck in the active spot as their only basic Pokemon, but they've got their 2 Swanna plus the Croconaw and the Traveling Merchant. Here we go. Game 3, it is the Pokemon Communication being pulled by the Razors. They are going to play that immediately so they can send one of their 2 Farfetch'd back into their deck, hoping for a Noctowl or a Fearow. And it is the Noctowl with that Fly being pulled, that 3 energy requirement. They are going for the Sleepy Lullaby, getting that 10 damage onto the Ducklet, but they are guaranteed to put them to sleep. The Hydros need the Flipper Heads for them to awaken, and they are successful. This will allow Ducklet to be able to go on the offensive with that Rain Splash, 10 damage. They pull their own baby Pokemon, the Monotype. As we said, the baby Pokemon are permitted in every deck, but only 1 of them per deck, as the Hydros do try with their Traveler Merchant. No Pokemon tools in their top 4 cards. Monotype going on the bench, and that energy onto the Ducklet here. And the Rain Splash getting that 10 damage onto Igglybuff as it comes back over to the Razors. They do re-pull that Farfetch'd. Maybe they didn't reshuffle their deck very well, as they can get the Noctowl online. It does require those 3 energy here. The Hydros, they did get the Monotype on the bench. Now, they don't want to lose their active Pokemon with an empty bench because they would automatically lose the game, and that is not how they want this perfect series so far, perfect season series that they've been having to end. As the Ducklet taking another 10 damage from the Igglybuff, Farfetch'd is on the bench with its first required energy as well. And again, they flip the heads already. Ducklet has awoken. Now, if it had remained asleep and they evolved it into a Swanna, it would have awoken then as well. But regardless, Swanna is online. With this Feathery Cyclone, 60 damage that it's capable of, but it does have to move all of its energy to a benched Pokemon. So they all go to the Monotype, and Monotype doesn't even require any energy here. But for that said, Monotype can also generate energy for only basic Pokemon, which Swanna is not, but Farfetch'd is, and it is in the active spot. There is the X-Speed being pulled, second energy for that Leak Slam, 60 damage, and they are free to wipe Swanna off the table again. These sides can barely be separated. They are both at 1 point each here in Game 3. And is Monotype going into the active spot for the Hydros. They need a basic Pokemon, and it's the inflatable boat. We said that if they had an empty bench, it does cost them the game if they lose their active Pokemon, and they have nothing. They know they are just ending their turn. They don't attach the energy. The Professor's research pulled for the Razors, but it is another Leak Slam, and the Petalburg Razors, with their Unleashed Nightfall deck, they will take down the Cold Fusion deck, and they will end the perfect season record of the Pastoria Hydros, handing them their first series loss, moving themselves up to second place, as next round they are going up against the Labia Constrictors, whereas for the Hydros they need to rebound as they are going up against the reigning champions, the Kitakami Rogues. But until then, Nidorinos, thank you so much for watching. Let us know in the comments below what cards you pulled today, and if you enjoyed what you saw, please leave a like, share, subscribe, but more importantly, always remember, send thanks, and I'll see you when you see me.